Think about what it takes to trust someone with the defense of 330 million people. Think about the clearances, the background checks, the polygraphs, the years of vetting, the layers of institutional oversight designed to ensure that the people sitting inside the most sensitive rooms in the American government are exactly who they say they are and loyal to exactly who they claim to serve. Now think about what it means when all of that fails. Not because the system was attacked from outside, not because a foreign intelligence service broke through the firewall, but because the person sitting inside chose to open the door, chose to take the money, chose to hand over the information, chose, year after year, to serve two masters, the country that trusted him and the government that paid him. On the morning of April 1st, 2026, FBI agents executed a search warrant at the McLean, Virginia estate of Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Richard Harlan Voss, a 27-year Pentagon veteran who held a top-secret sensitive compartmented information clearance, who had access to acquisition planning documents for 17 active U.S. defense programs, and who, according to a federal indictment unsealed that same morning, had been receiving payments from a Chinese People's Liberation Army procurement network for 9 consecutive years. The total documented in those 9 years was $3.9 billion. The server that documented it was hidden behind a false panel in his home office. And the classified files on that server included operational details for programs that American soldiers are depending on right now to stay alive. You need to understand what Richard Voss was before you can understand what he allegedly became. He was not a peripheral figure. He was not a mid-level bureaucrat with limited access and limited influence. Voss had spent 27 years inside the office of the Secretary of Defense, rising through the civilian acquisition chain to a position that gave him direct oversight responsibility for defense procurement decisions involving billions of dollars in contracts annually. He sat on 4 interagency working groups that coordinated acquisition strategy across the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. He reviewed classified budget justification documents for programs that Congress itself does not see in their full detail. He had relationships with contractors, with foreign liaison officers, with intelligence community counterparts whose trust in him was predicated entirely on his loyalty to the institution he represented. According to the FBI, he used every one of those relationships and every one of those access privileges as tools of betrayal for 9 years, while his government paid his salary, funded his retirement, and renewed his clearance on schedule. The investigation that uncovered Voss did not begin with him. It began in Taiwan, in the summer of 2024, when the CIA's counterintelligence station in Taipei identified an anomaly in the communication pattern of a known PLA procurement officer operating under commercial cover in the region. That officer, whose identity is known to U.S. intelligence but has not been made public, was communicating through an encrypted channel with a contact whose digital fingerprint was eventually traced back to the continental United States. The CIA flagged the communication to the FBI's counterintelligence division. The FBI's forensic analysts spent 4 months identifying the U.S.-based contact. What they found when they traced the communication back to its source stopped the investigation team cold. The encrypted channel terminated at a device registered to a Virginia shell company. The shell company had one beneficial owner, Richard Harlan Voss, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. From that moment, the investigation expanded with the full resources of the FBI's most sensitive counterintelligence units. Every communication Voss had made through the encrypted channel over the previous 3 years was reconstructed. Every financial account associated with him or his immediate family was examined under a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act order. Every document he had accessed through classified government systems in the previous 5 years was logged and cross-referenced with what appeared on the server his communications led investigators toward. The picture that emerged over 12 months of investigation was systematic and deliberate. Voss had not stumbled into a relationship with Chinese intelligence. He had constructed it. The initial contact, according to the indictment, was made by Voss himself in 2017, when he attended a defense industry conference in Singapore and initiated a private conversation with a PLA-connected procurement consultant who was attending under the cover of a civilian aerospace firm. That conversation produced a relationship. That relationship produced a payment structure. And that payment structure produced 9 years of classified American defense intelligence flowing in one direction, out, and $3.9 billion flowing in the other. The server in Voss's home office was the most significant single piece of physical evidence federal investigators had encountered in a counterintelligence case in over a decade, according to sources familiar with the investigation. It was a custom-built network-attached storage device, air-gapped from the internet, accessible only through a local connection within the home network, and hidden behind a panel in the office wall that presented as a built-in bookcase. The panel was not on any construction or renovation permit filed with Fairfax County. It had been installed by a contractor whose business license cannot be verified and who has not been located by investigators. Inside the server, agents found 412 classified documents. 47 of those documents were marked at the sensitive compartmented information level, the highest classification tier in the American intelligence system, accessible only to individuals with specific program-level clearances and a documented need to know. Voss had legitimate access to 11 of those 47 documents. The remaining 36 had been accessed by him through what the indictment describes as unauthorized lateral movement within classified government networks, accessing files beyond his designated scope by exploiting administrative permissions his position had accumulated over decades. Alongside the classified files, the server contained financial records documenting 63 separate payment transactions over 9 years, routed through a chain of shell companies in Singapore, the Cayman Islands, and Cyprus, before reaching accounts in Voss's name and in the names of family members. The total across all documented transactions was $3.9 billion. The indictment identifies the source of those funds as a PLA procurement network operating under the umbrella of a Chinese state-owned aerospace and defense conglomerate. What did China receive in exchange? That question is the one that the intelligence community is now working to answer. And it is a question whose full answer may never be made public, because making it public would require disclosing the programs that were compromised. What the indictment does disclose, in the language that prosecutors are permitted to use without revealing classified details, is that the documents on Voss's server included acquisition planning information for hypersonic defense interceptor development, classified cost and schedule data for next-generation fighter avionics programs, interoperability specifications for joint command and control systems used by American and Allied forces, and threat assessment documents prepared for the Secretary of Defense that described U.S. intelligence assessments of Chinese military capabilities and intentions in the Pacific. Read that list again. Hypersonic defense, fighter avionics, joint command and control, threat assessments of China's own military. If those documents reflect what actually moved from the server to the PLA procurement network over 9 years, China's military planners spent nearly a decade making decisions with knowledge of exactly what the United States knew about them, exactly what the United States was building to counter them, and exactly where the gaps in American defense capabilities were located. Voss was arrested at his estate at 5:58 in the morning. He did not resist. He did not appear surprised. His attorneys, 4 of them, retained before the arrest, which itself is a detail investigators note as significant, were present within 90 minutes. He has said nothing publicly. He has asserted his Fifth Amendment rights in every proceeding so far. His wife and 2 adult children, who are not charged, have also retained counsel. 3 current Pentagon officials, whose names appear in communication logs recovered from the server, have been placed on administrative leave pending security reviews. Their clearances have been suspended. The programs they worked on have been reviewed by the National Security Council for potential compromise exposure. The damage assessment is ongoing and is being conducted jointly by the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Security Agency. Damage assessments in espionage cases are extraordinarily difficult to complete because the assessors must work backward from what was taken to determine what decisions the receiving party made based on what they received, and foreign governments do not cooperate with that analysis. In the case of China's military modernization over the past 9 years, some of what the assessment is looking for may already be visible in public reporting. Chinese hypersonic missile development accelerated significantly between 2018 and 2023. The PLA's 5th-generation fighter avionics suite, revealed in public demonstrations in 2024, reflects design choices that American analysts found surprisingly sophisticated. Whether any of that acceleration reflects intelligence obtained through Voss, through other sources, or through independent Chinese development is a question the damage assessment will attempt to answer. The answer will be classified. What will not be classified is the fact that for 9 years, a man with top-secret SCI access to American defense secrets was on Beijing's payroll. Everything else flows from that. Richard Voss faces 14 federal counts, espionage under 18 U.S.C. Section 794, which covers delivering national defense information to a foreign government and carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment or death in cases where the disclosure results in the death of an intelligence asset. Conspiracy to commit espionage, unauthorized retention and transmission of national defense information, computer fraud, based on the unauthorized lateral access to classified files beyond his designated scope, money laundering, covering the processing of $3.9 billion in foreign payments through shell company structures, and making false statements in his most recent security clearance renewal, in which he was asked directly whether he had any contact with foreign intelligence services or foreign government officials and answered no. He answered no while the server was sitting behind the bookcase in his home office. The espionage count alone, if prosecutors pursue the maximum, puts Voss in the same legal territory as Robert Hansen and Aldrich Ames, two of the most damaging intelligence traitors in American history. The investigation continues. This is Federal Watch Network.